Did you know that according to the Prison Policy Initiative, the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world, with over 2 million people behind bars? Despite the US making up only 5% of the world's population, it holds nearly a quarter of the global prison population. The US prison system has undergone many transformations throughout history, evolving from early colonial punishments to the modern correctional facilities in place today. These changes have been shaped by legal, economic, and social factors. Today, I will take you through the history of the US prison system, from its beginning to modern changes we are seeing today. In the early American colonies, punishment was primarily physical and public. Instead of long-term imprisonment, offenders were subjected to corporal punishment, such as flogging, which is being beaten severely with a whip or a wand, or branding and public humiliation. Historian Adam J. Hirsch notes in his book, The Rise of the Penitentiary, Prisons and Punishment in Early America, that early American penal practices were deeply rooted in English traditions, which emphasized public shaming as a form of punishment. Jails existed primarily as holding facilities for individuals awaiting trial or punishment rather than for rehabilitation or long-term incarceration. In the late 18th century, there was a shift towards using incarceration as a primary form of punishment. The establishment of the Walnut Street Jail in Philadelphia in 1790 introduced the concept of solitary confinement, intending to encourage reflection and repentance. Two prison models emerged in the 19th century. There was the Pennsylvania system, where prisoners were held in solitary confinement the entire day to encourage self-reflection and rehabilitation. And then there was the Auburn system. Prisoners worked in a silence during the day and were isolated at night. It was focused on discipline and labor. Both of these influenced modern correctional practices, but also raised a lot of concerns about the mental effects of solitary confinement. Can you imagine spending days on end with no contact with another person? After the Civil War, incarceration became closely tied to labor, particularly in the South. The convict lease system was introduced, allowing states to rent out prisoners to private businesses so they could provide labor and it would reduce state costs. This system contributed to the expansion of prisons and affected mostly African Americans. During this time, reform efforts led to establishing some changing institutions that emphasized education and vocational training, particularly for younger offenders. The 20th century saw the expansion of the federal prison system with the creation of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, or otherwise known as the BOP, in 1930. Changes in policies during this time significantly increased incarceration. With the war on drugs in the 1970s and 80s, the new sentencing laws, including mandatory minimums and three strike rules, there was a huge rise in prison population. According to Michael Tonry's article, Sentencing in America from 1975 to 2025, these policies led to a shift towards punitive sentencing, affecting mostly minority communities and leading to long-term consequences for incarceration rates. The introduction of for-profit prisons in the 1980s created financial incentives for maintaining high incarceration rates. Policy changes led to longer sentences and higher rates of incarceration, creating prison overcrowding. Research published in the American Journal of Sociology indicates that between 1977 and 2000, every state's incarceration rate more than doubled, with an average increase of between 200 to 600%. By the 1990s, the US had the highest incarceration rate in the world, a trend that continues today. In recent years, there have been efforts to address challenges in the prison system. Some of these include modifications to drug-related sentencing laws and an increased focus on alternatives to incarceration, such as drug courts and rehabilitation programs. More programs aimed at reducing prison populations through early release initiatives and rehabilitation, and more rehabilitation and reentry programs with a focus on vocational training, mental health support, and reintegration programs to lower the recidivism rate. Despite these efforts, challenges such as overcrowding, prison conditions, and disparities in incarceration rates remain areas of focus in the criminal justice discussions today. The U.S. prison system has evolved through various models and policies, reflecting changes in societal views on punishment and rehabilitation. From early public punishments to modern federal institutions, the history of incarceration in the United States highlights the ongoing challenges in balancing justice, public safety, and rehabilitation. Understanding this history is essential for evaluating current policies and future reforms in the criminal justice system. Thank you all for listening, and I'm Melissa Bowman. And also, here's my audience that I had today. Hope you can see them. They were a really quiet audience. Thank you.